Hello and welcome back to my Micro Camper Diaries. Well, it's time for my first April diary entry of this year, and it looks like spring has finally sprung at last, bringing with it blue skies and sunshine. Many of you might recognise where I am today, as this bottleneck of a bridge has held up many a traveller, en route perhaps to Europe's biggest campsite and Shell Island. But it's not Shell I'm calling at today. It's yet another award-winning campsite renowned for its natural beauty. But first, perhaps a bit about Llanbedr before we scoot off out of the village. Llanbedr is a charming historic village situated within the Snowdonia National Park and straddling the River Artro. It is backed by both mountains and ancient woodlands. It's a peaceful base for walkers and tourists visiting the nearby beaches of Llandanog and resorts like Harlech and Barmouth. This is not a village of touristy shops. However, it does have three very good pubs all serving food. The Victoria is very prominently sitting on the corner before the bridge, sometimes called the Queen with the Sooty Nose by some of the campers on Shell Island due to its pub sign of picture of the Queen. But don't miss out on the Havon Artro Bar and Restaurant a little bit further in the direction of Barmouth, or the Taimawa, which is coincidentally on my route up into the hills. Llanbedr is well worth a walk around, especially if you want to stock up on groceries from the old bakery or perhaps just drop into the cafe. I'm heading for a campsite at Nantcol. You can't really get lost as both the campsite and the waterfalls are well signposted out of Llanbedr. Be aware though, the roads can be quite busy coming out of the village, and watch out for kiddies as there is a village school and not all the roads have pavements. It's just a few miles to the campsite, but it is up in the hills, so you might feel you are travelling some distance. However, considering there are people who walk down to the pubs for a meal or a drink and then walk back up to the campsite, it sort of puts things back in perspective. After perhaps a couple of miles, a well-signed right turn takes you over the River Artro, and an almost immediate left turn over a cattle grid follows a tributary up the Nantcol Valley. Note to self: clean windscreen before filming. Be aware the roads from here on are narrow and require passing places to pass oncoming vehicles. You'll also notice the roads, as well as being bendy, are quite steep in places, and although I often refer to these as hills, the scenery ahead will remind you that the hills in Wales are but the feet of the mountains. Not far to go now. Whilst the scenery on your left opens up to distant views, it's wise to keep the driver's eyes on the road ahead, as the wooded valley to the right is very steep-sided. Soon the emergence of the green waterfall sign beckons you down the lane to the car park and the reception buildings in the valley below. I hope the commentary along the road hasn't deterred you, as soon you'll find the journey has been well worth it. You first enter into a large car park where you will find the reception building. If the car park seems large, it's to accommodate people who may be just visiting the waterfalls. I'll get onto the waterfalls in a bit. The reception staff were delightful, both friendly, helpful and informative, pointing out where everything is and suggesting nice places to camp. They also provide tokens for the showers and sell various confectionery, as well as all the usual pops, coffees and a fair selection of fresh dairy ice cream. Despite being set in the mountains, the site offers 7 acres of flat camping space, and so I had no trouble finding myself a nice quiet spot. I cautiously parked next to some trees for shelter in case it got windy during the night. Now, I don't know about you, but once settled in, I usually do a bit of a walkabout, find the essential water taps and check out the facilities. The toilets, showers and washrooms and other facilities were all housed within 2 neat modern buildings, forming a sort of L shape. There was even a small, well-equipped laundry. At the end of each building was a covered washing up space. I have to say that these buildings weren't just clean, they were clinically clean. Trust me, I used to work in a hospital. It's no wonder that this campsite has won so many awards. Time to sit down, take five, put my feet up and have a brew, I think. Now the eagle-eyed amongst you will have already noticed I'm using my new kitchen. Yep, I've been hard at it since the last video, crafting and creating the two units which go together to create somewhere to store my bits and bobs and allow me to cook and clean even when the doors are closed. And this is my first trip to test it all out. By the end of the previous video, I'd barely completed the sink carcass and couldn't quite make up my mind what colours to paint it all. Well, eventually my wallet told me to use whatever paint I had in my shed. The innards were always going to be white as it helps you see what's inside, but it seems I had quite a lot of blue paint and varnish, so here it is. The unit for the stove is obviously a bit different from that of the sink, which is able to be set back into the side door space. And as the stove isn't as wide as my sink, I was able to lose 3 whole inches or 7 and a bit centimeters off the depth of the carcass, which meant I was able to gain a similar amount of space down the middle of my van. It doesn't seem much, but when space is at a premium, it really can be. By the way, the similarities between this and something you might build for your granddaughter's Wendy house wasn't lost on me. Anyhow, enough of that technical mumbo jumbo. It's making my head hurt. Well, let's see how well it works at breakfast. Let's go look at the waterfalls. A convenient map on the wall of reception shows you the route of the walk. It's circular and well marked with posts that bring you back to the car park. Those of you with young children might want to stick to the campsite where the river remains quite placid as it levels out around 2 islands. This is an ideal place to let the children play while you keep an eye on them from the many seats and picnic tables. Whilst the first island is a play area for paddling, a second island above is accessible via a small bridge. This is a sort of nature trail for the kids, with many interesting wildflowers to find. From here on in, the path becomes serious. After you pass through a gate out of the campsite, the river veers away to head up through a steep-sided gorge. My advice is not to stray from the path, and if you have kids, keep hold of their hands. The views of the cascading water is quite a spectacle, and the sound of the crashing river really consumes your senses. At the very top, the ground levels off again, and the river takes on a more settled appearance, and breaking off, or should I say coming together from several directions as it's met by its many feeder streams. The views from up here are not to be sneezed at either, looking up towards what I take to be Rhinogfawr and Rhinogfach. I hope I'm right with that. Either way, it's beautiful. You can also look down to the sea, and in the distance the Llyn Peninsula. Back on the campsite, I settled down to a pot noodle, a cup of tea, and to relax for the evening with my Sudoku, enjoying the last of the spring sunshine. I was really enjoying the quiet. Music isn't allowed on this site, so just the distant sound of laughing children. and the occasional delicious smells drifting over from a neighbouring barbecue. Evidently in summer, a local couple arrived to cook authentic hand-stretched Neapolitan pizzas. But sadly, it's a bit too early in the season. As the night drew in, I hit the sack, reading for a bit until my eyes got heavy. Sadly, my little TV wouldn't pick up a signal, but I didn't care. Well, I've awoken this morning to the sound of nature's alarm clock, i.e. a dawn chorus, and the sound of lambs bleating for their mothers on the hillside there. A fantastic night's sleep, absolutely great. I've nipped over to the showers. The showers, I've got to say, are fantastic. You pick up a couple of tokens from the reception for 50p each. And the showers are really invigorating. It was hot, it was powerful enough, and it lasted long enough on just one token. I have a token left which I'm going to pass on to somebody else. I think it's time to make up some breakfast and test out this kitchen properly. Well, you'll be glad to know I'm not making a cookery segment. There are plenty of videos out there on YouTube doing just that. However, I would like to say it's all working rather well. I can still open the cupboard doors, but being low down, I'm finding things more by sense of touch and remembering where I put things rather than by sight. But that was to be expected. The stove is working well in that position and isn't steaming or smoking out the van. I did try it with the door closed just to check. Oh, and I have got a smoke and carbon monoxide tester in the van, by the way, before somebody tells me off. Though I will admit I have yet to screw in my fire extinguisher to the end of the stove unit. It's there on my to-do list. But I did say this trip was to test things out, and I do plan some fine-tuning. I haven't come up with a hot water supply as yet, so the kettle will have to do. But the water cans below the sink are doing the job admirably, so the sink's working just fine, though I have to remember my pan scrub for next time. I have to be honest, I forgot to cap or empty the cans before leaving, and yet there was no spillages. So to sum up, the kitchen's working just fine, and I wouldn't say I'm losing too much space in comparison with my previous system of storage boxes. I think I'm going to look next at creating a folding bed to chair that will allow me to sit and cook comfortably, and perhaps a mirror over the sink for morning shaves, etc. My stay at Nantcol has been absolutely great. I'd rate it as one of the best sites I've ever visited. There's a link down in the description to find their website. It's time for me to pop off home now, so thank you all so very much for watching, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Just a quick additional. In the video you heard me mention making a folding bed. I'm always on the lookout on Facebook, and I'm always telling people to do the same. This was free. It's a single bed. I'm sure I'll be able to cut it down and make some use of it in making one for the inside of my camper. Anyhow, watch this space and I'll see what I can do with it. That's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. See you all again real soon. Bye now.